Resolute Exposure is a social media platform. Almost all content on Resolute Exposure is created by citizen journalists. I share content created by citizen journalists who I believe to be the best at finding facts buried deep into the abyss, or outlets who I believe to be best for verifiable information. We have to operate within their system, and we only have the information that they allow us to have. These citizen journalists who nerd out on fact-finding missions and then add their opinion to better inform me to make the best choice for me in this war of narratives is Resolute. This information war is a battle for your mind and ultimately compliance. While mainstream media dismisses social platforms as mere echo chambers for fake news, independent spaces like this prove that shared content and live dialogue actually foster deeper critical thinking. So, I am excited to share the content in hopes you'll turn off mainstream media, who I believe is just a version of entertainment. So again, welcome to Resolute Exposure.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
As the world watches and listens in horror, the peaceful pro-democracy demonstration in China comes to a violent and bloody end.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wolves hiding nearby, whispering do or die around me. You say your last good night while I get
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is against the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
The ammunition used by Psywar.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldier, and at the same time
is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of human experience.
gripping at my skin, the walls of night closing.
But the use of this force as an integral part of combat has now taken on new form.
As I wait to say my last goodbye.
These are the Psy-War soldiers.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host, producers, or any affiliated organization. This podcast may include sensitive discussion related to topics such as child protection, abuse, and criminal behavior. The content is intended for informational, educational, and awareness purposes only, does not constitute legal, medical, or professional advice. Any reference to individuals, cases, or events are based on personal perspective, professional experience, or publicly available information and should not be interpreted as statements of fact regarding any specific person or situation. The host, speakers, and producers disclaim any liability for actions taken by listeners based on the content of this podcast. Listeners are encouraged to seek qualified professional guidance for their specific circumstances. Listeners' discretion is advised. All individuals are presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. How about that? How about that? I gotta wait for technology to catch up to me. That's it, he says. All right. Welcome, folks, to Thursday night's edition of Caught Up. Obviously, I had some technical difficulties, and not always necessarily my fault. These things update from time to time, so there we go. All right, I see it now. But what I was trying to say before I was muted and all that was probably one of the best intros I ever had. Was everything that's gone on this last week on a national level, the primaries on a national level. Let's see the fraud that's going on in Minnesota. Let's see the DNC autopsy of their failed Biden administration and how they tried to let's see. Um, remove Biden from the campaign to rerun for president, and just sort of sticking Kamala Harris in there. But anyway, the primaries, the Cassidys, the Masseys, Brad Raffensperger out of Georgia's done. He's toast, and he's just got a little bit of time left. I think as Secretary of State, and then I don't know. Hopefully, some things come his way as far as legal action and stuff. What he did to the 2020 election, and with the state of Georgia, him and their governor, whose name has escaped me at the moment, but this epic meltdown that was on social media about these guys losing the race, and I just got a question for those that, I don't know where you are on the fence with Trump. It really doesn't matter to me. I like Trump. I don't like everything he does. I don't like everything he says. But I know that the in my opinion, the greater goal of what's happening here is further down the road, and not so much what's going on, what we can see as of today, maybe tomorrow or a couple weeks, so on. But the dude's nearly undefeated when he endorses people, and well, you can't. You can't run on the coattails of him, and then do little sneaky things along the way that goes against the agenda that you said that you were going to have, which is you got elected based on the fact that the people wanted that agenda to run. So the other thing, this gerrymandering thing, where the Supreme Court came in and said, and I want you guys to listen real clear how I'm going to say this, that they created districts. When I say they, I'm talking about your politicians, including mine in the state of Tennessee. They created districts based on race years ago. And the Supreme Court came in and said that was unconstitutional. It was based on race. That's unconstitutional. So all of these people who were so-called elected into office during this time were also unconstitutionally elected. Now, for all the people out there that are bitching and complaining about the fact that these states are turning back to what they probably truly were to begin with, which was conservative, there are some states that'll probably be not purple no more, but blue. And if we're to believe in the red and the blue, the D and the R and the I, if we're to believe in all of that, then this is what they're telling us is what's going on, right? So, makes no sense to me to watch these people melt down on social media because they believe that they're losing a voice when they had no voice because it was all illegal to begin with. And they were allowed to carry this on for years, actually for decades. And so there are hundreds of illegal politicians because of this gerrymandering. So now we're going to do this. We're going to ungerrymander what they gerrymandered, right? We're going to fix what they should have never been allowed to do to begin with. It's a shame that the Supreme Court didn't step in a long time ago. And that's another question. Why does the Supreme Court got to wait for somebody to bring it when they see these things that are unconstitutional? Can they not just voice an opinion about it? Because their opinion all by itself is what motivates people in the public. Because when you try to tell people the three branches of the of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, judicially, the Supreme Court is the least of the powers. Why? Because they can only give opinions. They can change things federally. Civilly, across the country, really can't do anything because it's based on the states. So, the Supreme Court just sits up there and waits watches these things unfold, fully knowing that eventually it's going to come before them, and it's probably not legitimate to begin with. And so it just carries on. Well, these three branches of government are supposed to, what is that, the right word? They're supposed to, the checks and balances, right? What the hell are they doing? Are they checks and balancing each other? You don't have Congress and Senate doing their job. You don't have the Supreme Court, in my opinion, doing their job. And then you have the executive branch who is considered overreach on his job. And the reason it's considered overreach on his job is because the other two branches of the government are not doing their job because they want the fourth branch of the government to do their job, which is all these outside interests, lobbyists, and judges. Now we're appointing judges federally, right? They get appointed by the president and so on and so forth, right? But they have letters beside their name, which means if you're a judge that's a Republican, then you're going to do things based on that letter beside your name. And to say that you're not is straight up a lie. And so, and why can we say it's a lie? Why can I say it's a lie? Is because it's proven itself over and over and over again for decades. So, if they were generally going to do their job, then this fourth branch wouldn't exist, which is basically they're subcontracting their job out. And then you have these judges with these, we'll just call them black robes, with these letters and colors that are tied to that black robe, like I'm a Democrat and I bleed blue, and I'm a Republican and I bleed red, and I'm an independent and I'm white. When they're supposed to be impartial. Politics shouldn't play a role. Religion shouldn't play a role. Only the facts brought before them should determine the outcome of what's going on. And when you got a judge in Oregon putting a stop on something that's going on at the border with Texas, because he's a federal judge and he has some sort of authority, they claim, and he's in control of a district or a region, or just pick any other state north of the Mason-Dixon line. And why the hell do they have that type of authority? Now, they'll interject themselves into a conversation that's not needed, and they'll stop the whole process of what needs to be done, which is exactly what we voted for. We the people. We the people. We voted for that. So if we're to believe that votes are real and not fraudulent, can't be manipulated, can't be determined by money or outside interests or whatever else, well, then what we voted for should stand. But it doesn't. Doesn't. So, this whole dismantling of the parties and people online, social media, they don't see it. Even politicians out there who are new candidates running for office, they don't see that. They still see that some of these things that are being done are not what the people wanted. Like Trump or don't like Trump, the things that he's doing right now are completely transparent. Something is coming out of the White House 3 to 4 times a week, 2 times at a minimum, whether it's the Department of War or the White House media. Something. You're hearing something. And what have we learned since Trump's been in office? When you go all the way back to 2017 and then the 4 years where he was sitting back watching what was going on, and then where we are now, what has been exposed? Got a lot of people that bitch about the Epstein files, right? Release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files, wah, right? Release the list. That list does not exist, because if it did, you can bet your ass that stuff would have came out during the first 4 years Trump was in office. That list doesn't exist. Why does that list not exist? Because in the early 2000s, in the Southern District of New York, when he was, Epstein was charged with those crimes, and he was extradited from Florida to the Southern District of New York, there were plea arrangements made. Why were there plea arrangements made? Because when you're a man that's got that kind of money and power and knowledge, Epstein, and he was a black male industry that offered up, obviously, young underage girls as ways to entice prominent public figures so that they could be used for extortion and everything else. That's what the Epstein list is. Yes, were there some people and some ladies and some girls and stuff like that were all done wrong in the very beginning. Absolutely. I'm not arguing against that. But I'm telling you now, there's no list like you think there's a list. What's going on with the whole Epstein thing is so that all of you on Facebook and X and Twitter and TikTok and whatever else is out there, social media platforms, so that you guys argue and who's right. I'm right because these people are on that list. I'm right, no, because these people are on that list. And it's just this constant battle and bicker and bullshit. And it's done by design. And believe me, if Trump was on that thing to the point where they could put that man under the prison, they would have found it 8 years ago. He would have never been able to run again. They would have impeached him. They would have convicted him. He'd probably be dead by now. But there's nothing on there that makes him look like he's guilty of anything that everybody's arguing about, because that's what it's about. It's about Trump and a list. That's it. Trump, is he on the list? Did he fly in a plane? Was he on the island? Did he approach a bedroom? I don't know. Did he hold Ghislaine Maxwell's hand? Did he have, inappropriate sex with her in a changing room? If all of that was real, believe me, it would have been done. Trump would not exist at all. We would not know anything about what he's been doing because he wouldn't exist. It'd be done and over with. But they don't. And the reason they don't is because of what Epstein did when he was charged in the very beginning, when you go all the way back. And I suggest and I encourage that you go to Just Human. He's on Rumble. And go down there and listen to his 4-hour podcast as he reads through all of the paperwork that he was allowed to receive through FOIA requests, public records requests. And it talks about the stuff that was sealed that will never be unsealed because the grand jury didn't hand down those indictments. So I'm sorry for all of you out there that think somebody's going to get caught and it's going to protect all these people. And here's one more thing to think about before I move on to the next topic, is these ladies that were children, young girls, when all this happened to them. Wrong. When they became adults, most of these ladies stuck around because of the money that they were receiving. And when these ladies were brought before a court where they were subpoenaed to appear, however that worked out, way back at the beginning, early 2000s, go back to the fucking beginning. They signed NDAs and they took money. Why? Because when they became of age and they had the opportunity to be an adult and move away from that, even though it might have been hard. I'm not saying it was easy, okay? They chose to stay and reap the benefits from what happened. So it was hard to use them as a witness against, because they could also be charged with a crime. Now, that's the part of the shit that you don't hear on the news, that all these women that were wrongfully under the age of 18, those girls, that when they became adults, carried on for the same thing, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I'm not saying that I'm for that, okay? I'm just stating the fact. The fact is, when it was presented in a court in the Southern District of New York, where they're going to charge these ladies as accomplices in Epstein's thing, or were they going to allow them to go loose, make them sign NDAs, and Epstein pay them off? Now, you can find all that information on Just Humans podcast. And after you watch the 4 hours boring reading and all of his opinions that go into it, and they're fantastic, then I want you to shut the hell up. This is my opinion. So now I want to get into the primary thing. The primary thing over the weekend, man, blew some heads. People were definitely not happy about all of the the stuff that they were seeing, and they weren't happy with the fact that Massey lost and that Cassidy lost, and they're saying that all these guys were for Trump, and they were they voted 99%, this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. But I'm here to tell you, a lot of these people ride the coattails of what is good and fruitful. And so at some point they forgot what they were doing. And what they forgot was it was we the people. The agenda right now in this country is Donald Trump's agenda. The agenda that we wanted: stronger immigration, shut the borders down, manufacturing to come back, all these other stuff. No new wars. Sorry about Iran. Again, I'm not for it, not against it. Really don't have an opinion for it, but I understand. But all these things. And again, how transparent has he been since he's been in office? All these years, even when he was out of office, he took a short period of time. And then what did he do? He got truth up and running so they could not censor him anymore. Do you realize? Do you all forget that they took the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, off of Twitter? They censored him while president. Come on. Why? Why? Because he was defeating the old guard. He was beating the media. Because in his first run, 2017 to 20? What is it? False media, fake media, all these things. Remember, he reiterated it over and over and over again. Why? Because the media regurgitates and reiterates all the dumb shit over and over and over again, to the point where when you're out and about, you just sort of regurgitate just the same way. He had to compete with that, and he found a way. With everything they knocked away from him that was at his disposal, and they removed it, he built it. Kudos to him. I'm glad he built truth. I'm glad he's on it. He communicates with the people way better through truth than anywhere else. He's the most transparent president ever. Whether you like him or you don't like him matters not. So are you entertained yet? Because we've had Epstein exposed. We've had child trafficking. Just look up the numbers of all the things that have been stopped. For all the naysayers out there that he's not doing anything, right? Look it up. You have Google and all these other search engines, and you can add AI to it. It's real simple. You just type it in, and it'll pull it up. Good, bad, or indifferent. You'll see. What are these agencies that are doing? All these three-letter agencies, and I don't much care for the three-letter agencies. All of a sudden, they're working in the best interest of the American people. They're removing illegal aliens. They're starting with the worst of the criminals first, and they're working their way down. And people are getting upset. Why? The working class? You think all the Mexicans are, what are they? I know they're farming and stuff like that. They don't have every single job out there. But if you're not here legal, then you're illegal, which means you are breaking the law. And we asked, as a country, as a group of people, as a whole, that we wanted that to stop. These politicians that rode the coattails saying that they would do that, and then they would vote in the beginning the way that it was all supposed to go, but as time go by, they would sort of just change, do a little bit different, and then guess what? The primaries roll back around, and they're right back on that damn Trump coat train again. But this time it didn't work. The people saw. When Trump, who's undefeated or nearly undefeated when it comes to endorsements, said one thing or another, it changed. Some guy that was in Kentucky named Massey that was getting 75, 80% of the vote, Didn't get 50 this time in the primary. He lost to a dairy farmer, a formal military who I haven't done enough research on him to exactly say who he is and who he's not, but he deserves an opportunity. Massey did some things that were very, very questionable, which is what lost his endorsement. Didn't he vote? Was that Cassidy voted to impeach? I think so. After he won his election from being endorsed by Donald Trump. So check this out.
Doing this too long. All right, guys. Smash the thumbs up if you have not done so already. And let's go ahead and jump into the news. The big news out of the day. Thomas Massey is out. Ed Galrain, or however you say his name, Galrain, 54.4% of the vote in a massive turnout. 104,000 votes. 104,000 votes in a district primary race. It's 20,000 more than 2020 and almost 60,000 more, double. It's actually exactly double, 52,000, doubled the 2020, I think it was 2022 race. Might have been the 2018 race, I'm not sure. But yeah, huge turnout, apparently, allegedly, reportedly. Where did I have that next clip? Oh, well, we'll just jump into Harry Enton talking about why.
I love Harry Enton. He's so fun.
He's my favorite person on CNN, more than Scott Jennings, because Scott Jennings just says the things we want to hear. In reality, he's kind of a neocon, but he says some really cool things. But
I like Caitlin Collins. She's like a more based version of Scott Pressler.
She's like a female version of Ben Shapiro in terms of appearance. I can't unsee that, man. Have you ever seen that meme? Like
no, I've just seen her compared to looks wise to Scott Pressler.
Okay, I could see that one too. Yeah. I could see that one too. All right, check this out.
Surprise. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised at all, because the bottom line is this. Donald Trump is the general of the Republican Party, and the Republican primary voters are his soldiers. And if you look at Thomas Massey, you can see it very clearly. You look in 2020, 2022, 2024, he was getting 75%, upwards of 81% of the primary vote in 2020. And today, he gets less than 50% of the vote. That's the story.
That is incredible, because you look at it so consistent time after time after time. And then, wow, look at tonight. Donald Trump, thank you.
Yeah.
Boom.
So, I mean, important to remind everyone, Thomas Massey was the original DeSantis simp. He is the one that when DeSantis decided he was running for office, Thomas Massey was all in immediately. So I've been skeptical of him ever.
Did you hear that? He was for DeSantis in the beginning.
Ever since then, you know, that was I feel like President Trump probably has too.
I think the whole DeSantis thing was controlled. Do
you think this is controlled? I mean, as we talked about before the show, elections are fake. So all the outrage, all the emotional capital, all the people. Like I had I have friends with a bunch of local Colorado content creators here, and we're in this group chat together, and they're dooming out last night. I'm eating a handful of black pills because Thomas Massey is the best guy in the entire world. It's like, he's a politician, guys. Like, let's roll it back. Calm down. Take a breath. And also, elections are fake.
Yeah, well, yes, for sure. For sure. I said at Gart Nashville that Trump is taking the axe to the Democratic Party, and he's doing it in broad daylight. Act Blue, SPLC, he's doing it in front of everybody. But when Trump said, we're going to take the power back from the small group of people who have been controlling Washington, D.C. for, so long, I'm taking the power back and giving it to the people. Do you think he meant like I'm giving it to the Republican Party?
No, that's not what he meant. It's not what he meant at all. Giving it back to the people. Let's take a look here real quick. Oops, cancel. Let's take a look here real quick. I have this short video. take a second here to populate. All right, watch this. Watch this. Let's see. Watch this. Inauguration 2017.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
Yeah. Did you forget?
For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost.
The cost. People.
Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country.
No.
Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land.
Yeah. Remember?
That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you.
Belongs to you. He made those statements at the beginning of his 2017 presidency. As far as I'm concerned, he's continued that as we went along. For the last 2 weeks on this episode of Caught Up on Thursdays, I did a national defense strategy, kind of like a breakdown. What do we call it? OG calls it a op-ed, and which is an opinion editorial. And we talked about everything lining up the way that it had to because of an illegitimate government. I know that's hard to hear. People don't always like it. They don't want to hear that these elections are not legitimate. They're not legitimate. There's proof of that. Gave you proof at the very beginning when we started talking about the gerrymandering, which is now what we're doing is ungerrymandering. Those districts based off of race that were throughout the South and everywhere else are unconstitutional. They were illegal. All those people who were elected to the positions to run those districts, and how many people that may be, I don't know. Probably lots of them if you take it as an overview from the whole country, were all illegitimate. They were illegal. They knew this. Think they didn't know that? You don't think the president doesn't know that? The man that has access to all information, period. And he has the ability and the staff to digest it. How do you think he stays ahead of the narrative sometimes? Or most of the time. Finds ways to get ahead of things. Gets ahead of Iran on it. I mean, was it a week ago when he come out and said to Brett Baer after he was while he was in China, talking about wasn't worried about the Americans' financial status when he's over there making deals, and thank God he's not. I mean, that's not. Don't get me wrong. It's supposed to be for the people, by the people, but when you're making deals economically that benefit us, you have to have that art of the steal, right? To be able to negotiate the way that he does. He does a fantastic job. Fantastic job. He is not going to say everything correctly the way that we want. And I'll go ahead and say again, it's going to get worse before it gets better, because this is not about tomorrow. It's not about a month down the road. It's not about 2026 midterms or even the 2028 election in 2.5 years or whatever, however it is away. This is about 10 years plus down the road. This is what this is about. I think that I can see that vision, provided things go the way that they do, and it has to go this way. He has to expose everything on the Democratic side, and he did. What is it? Act Blue, the SLPC, all these things. Look what's going on in Minnesota. All these things, all these Democratic NGO organizations, fraud, funneling money, this, that, and the other, all that stuff that's all been exposed like you've never seen it before in your life. When I was a kid, I used to hear my older uncles and dad and all that stuff talk about how the government was fraudulent. Nobody had proof. It was just, they could say that based off the experience. They ran a budget in their home, and they knew if they ran it like the federal government ran their budget, they wouldn't have a damn home. So all kinds of fraud stuff going on. They knew it. We have proof today, like hardcore proof, like the type of proof that you can't deny. That's transparency. You didn't have that in the Biden administration, that illegitimate and illegal administration. He was not duly elected. He was placed. Then you have the Obama administration. Same thing. Did we forget the pallets of cash that went to Iran? Benghazi? Hillary Clinton? The email scandal? I can go on and on. He claimed he was the the least scandalous president in history, and he was the most scandalous president if he was truly duly elected, and he probably wasn't. Then you go back to what? The Bushes, Clintons, Bush, you got Reagan. I'm telling you, these institutions take care of each other, and it's not about the people. It's not about what's on my shirt. It's not about what's on my hat. Actually, it's people on the porch, but they put people the way that they do because it's about us. You want to know what the plan is? Everybody here, just trust the plan. Trust the plan. Q said, Q this, Q that. Trust it. Trust the plan. The plan is the people. And so some of us are far more ahead of what they believe is going on than others. And there's some that are just lagging behind. I don't know how this is all going to work out. Like if everybody's supposed to understand it all at the same time, or it might take, I don't know. I just don't know. But in order for us to save the republic, not the democracy, not the Republican, not the Democrat, not the independent, not the politician. It's not our job. It's the republic. If you can keep it. Well, for 250 years, we've kept it. We've kept it in a way. Again, I talk about alternate realities. We're living in one reality, and the Constitution is another reality. So eventually, those two have to merge. And I think that we're on the right track to make that absolutely happen. When we talk about some of the things that, when I talk about some of the things Trump's done, I don't know, DEFCON 0 does a fantastic job at breaking things down. And I don't know if you're familiar. Josh Reed and Alpha. They're on Badlands, and they're on their own stuff. You can find them on Rumble and all that good stuff like that. But they do, and particularly Josh Reed does a fantastic job. Former military. For all you guys out there that, You pick your politicians because they were former servicemen. Well, would you pick your favorite media if you knew that they were former service? The show I'm fixing to show you, there's two of them on there. One's a former Marine, one's former Navy. They do a fantastic job breaking down, deciphering, doing all that stuff, right? They make a whole lot of sense. So if we're going to use military as the way, we're only going to trust those that were former military. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say, if you're former military and you're going into politics, it's designed for you to take that route. You spent 25 or 30 years in the military, you retire, you got medals or brass and all kinds of stuff on your sleeve, that kind of thing. And so you're not going to stay in the military. The next best thing is go home and run a politics. You have a problem with that. The problem is you weren't in public. You didn't mingle with civilians. You were part of the military. They had you here, there, everywhere, or in some cases they may have had you stateside the whole time, but you were still military. You didn't mingle with the public, civil servant. You're with us, and then you move into that position. So when you're in the service as a military, then you're not with the civilians. You are here. Same level, but here. And so coming back, you have to adapt. I mean, I watched friends that came back from foreign wars, and it took a couple years for them to get back, almost, not completely, and some of them still not at all to this day, because of the crap that they saw when they were over there. So we don't deal with that. We deal with rude people on the highway, and gas is too high over here and eggs are too high over there, grocery store stuff, bickering at schools over whose kid's prettier than the other kid, or tougher than the other kid, or more athletic than the other kid, that kind of stuff, or what day of the week it is, because Google has tomorrow is, shave your ass day. That kind of thing, right? So, I mean, you're in the service, rank and file, orders, this, that, and the other. You're there for years, and then you decide to come out and come into the politics of the world, and you believe you know what we want. And I don't think you do. And it's proven over and over and over again, because they end up in Senate and Congress, and they don't do anything. As a matter of fact, most of them that were a part of war find their ways in the pockets of people that continue to want to keep the war, which they swore when they were running for office they were done. Why? Because they were there and they know what's going on, and we don't. Well, that's cool. That's probably true. But you don't know what's going on over here either. So if you're former military and you haven't been back into the civilian lifestyle for 4, 5 years, then you probably shouldn't be running for office, because it's just more of the same. So check this out. These are two of my favorite guys. And let me go through anyway, we got OG Scrappy Dog. He's been in here for a little while. This is a Kentucky judge. Listen to this. A Kentucky judge stopped the ability of the Blount County Sheriff's Office from stopping minors to enter the drag queen sex show at the Clayton Center a couple years ago, right there on Maryville College campus. I remember that. So he's talking about these judges that don't even live in our area, but because they're assigned over a district, they're appointed. This judge was a judge that had a Democrat beside his name, and he bled blue. Not for the sheriffs, for his party. And what did he do? He stopped them from enforcing the laws where you intermingle sexual predators with children, and some of these predators are their parents. That's bad. You know what I'm saying? Why were they allowed to do that? Why was a judge allowed to do that? He shouldn't have been. You know what I mean? That should have never happened. And then we got Tipton. Miss Kim Tipton said she's learned that she's watching a movie. That's probably the truth. Absolutely the truth. If you see what's going on in Iran and the Straits and all that stuff like that right now, and the Middle East and all these things. I mean, you can go back and watch several movies. You know what I mean? Well, we got Top Gun, we got the new one too, Maverick, and then what was this, Enemy of the State type stuff. We got what is it? I don't know. They're all movies to some degree. That's why Trump calls people central casting, which is maybe that's what the Cassidys and the Massies and the Rathenbergers and the Gnomes and whoever else. And do you realize that he's in office doing the things that we elected him to do, and he's battling treasonous people within the departments that he's over to try to get shit done, while in the background they're trying to stop that until 2028. Makes no damn sense to me. Kim says that Massey voted to not certify the 2020 election. And we have it all. We absolutely have it all. And then we got James Richard. He's back. He's up here on Facebook. Good job, James. It's about where it's going and how to stop it. So you got to start at the front lines. Yep. Once a Marine, always a Marine. That's why I call them former. It's just respect. Freedom has always come at a cost, James says. Be thankful for those who serve and they pay the price. It's Memorial Weekend. Tomorrow's my birthday. I turned 52. I got a 3-day weekend. I'd like to go golfing, as long as the rain doesn't mess things up. And that kind of thing. Memorial Day. What's Memorial Day about? It's about those who have fallen. It's not about veterans and those who are alive and serving or who have served. That's a whole other day. This is about the fallen. These are the ones that gave for what I'm sitting here able to talk to you about. These are the ones that we're celebrating. And James must be talking about the Constitution when I say we're running alternate realities, 2 separate documents. The document that they all want us to live by and the document that we, the people, should be living by. Again, if we get into constitutional stuff, all these elected officials that are elected right now are done. They're done. What was last Monday? Scrappy Dog? I've talked about so much, I don't know. It just kind of went right over. But the Constitution says if the government gets bigger than the people, then it's up to the people to remove the government. You don't understand what that means. I can say it, and I hardly understand what that means. Oh, Veterans Day. Thank you. Last Monday. Okay. My bad. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So I'm going to share DEFCON 0 here for a second, and then we'll get in a few articles about things that are going on, and then we'll end with some Promethea action because that lady, Susan Kokinda, does an amazing job, and then we'll call it an evening. But I appreciate all the chat that's going on in both Rumble and Facebook. Looks like I got one on YouTube as well. I don't know. He would come up here, and it has not, so it just shows Rumble. So if you're on YouTube and you got a comment, you can just type it in there, and it'll come up right here, bud or gal. So anyway, check this out.
And Massey has the, call it synthetic, call it fake, but Massey has the support to generate an argument around that. He could really create a discord, where we're going through that argument for a while. He did it. He just let them stick with the narrative. And when he conceded his race, he started his opening statement with, I tried to call Ed, but I couldn't find him. Nobody could find him in Tel Aviv, right? So he feeds his base the Israel narrative, followed up with "I can see." So the marching orders that he left for the low IQ influencers that got caught in that propaganda is continue pushing Israel, but we're not going to fight the legitimacy of this election. You see where I'm going with this? Go for
So
it.
I do, and one of the things that you're trying to set the precedent for is that we just had a legitimate election. That this was a legitimate election. That nobody tried to steal this election, and that's a really interesting take, because here's something very interesting in the context of the constructed narrative. Yesterday, Ashley, I think her name is Ashley St. Clair, Elon Musk's ex-girlfriend, baby mama, right? Number 14 or whatever it is, came out and said that Elon stole the 2024 election for Donald Trump, utilizing his 50 different space laser-based satellites, all of this stuff. And we talked about this before, that on the left, after the 2024 election, there was a CIA guy that came out claiming that Trump stole the election by manipulating the ES&S machines and flipping the votes. The same scenario that we said happened in 2020, which is actually being proven right now. And I thought it interesting that she comes out right before Massey's election, almost like she was prepping for that narrative to be strong, but Massey didn't play the card.
He didn't. And what was something that was highlighted over the last 10 days? How much money it is. They came out. I think they said it set the record for the most money ever spent in a
$500 per vote
in a House primary. Now, let me ask you this, Josh. If you subscribe to the idea that Israel in of itself controls the election, or this is for the sake of argument to keep everybody, if you just subscribe to the idea that there are people that have the ability to manipulate our elections, why would it take a record-setting investment in money into a campaign if that was the case? And this is why. The reason you saw that much money is because they had to fight this race the old school way. They had to do advertising. They had to do marketing. They had to do influence operations. And why is that? Because they lost the ability to steal these races the way they've done it before. And that is a major fucking signal.
Well, in Kentucky, by the way, was just one of the states that just had the redistricting from the gerrymandering. And this is huge. I mean, we've been setting up the reasons why we're going to see a red wave in November. And don't get me wrong. Once DNI Tulsi Gabbard's report comes out on election integrity and infrastructure, this is going to be monumental. And I believe it's going to bring about a national emergency that Trump is going to sign. And it's going to bring certain restrictions and regulations pertaining to the November election. But within this, if we just look at the southern states that are doing all of the gerrymandering redistricting, this is huge, and it's getting shot down by the Supreme Court. We're gaining seat after seat. You just had Stacey Abrams yesterday on a podcast talking about how, not only they are going to lose 20 to 30 seats within the House of Representatives, they're going to lose hundreds within the state and local level. This is massive, people. I'm telling you, is building up to be a red wave. Not only that is, just on the Democrat side, tell me one Democrat candidate that has come out there and said that we're raising this money against the Republicans. Zero, zilch, nada. Not only that is Governor Mills of Maine dropped out of the governor's race because she had no money. That's because Act Blue is under investigation. The NGO infrastructure is being shut down of how to funnel that money into these candidates' freaking coffers. So we're telling you right now that we're getting the signs and the signals that, hey, this is very real. Not only that, there's a psychological perspective that also comes about here, Alpha. And you were hinting towards this earlier, and I want to bring this in the view. You have the FAGA, the anti-MAGA crowd, right? You have the AJs and the Tucker Carlsons. They're all coming out and like, oh, MAGA's dead, and America First is dead, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's, right? All of these people. And they're telling you that, oh, yeah, there's no way Trump-endorsed candidates are going to win in November, that the Republican Party is fractured.
And they already won.
That Trump's candidates are winning across the board, primary after primary. They're primarying Cassidy. They're going to primary Ken Paxton. Pete Corn. You got Massey that is out. This is monumental. Not only were they wrong,
Let me
But
run down the list. Let me run down the list for you.
Listen to this list.
So let me just run down the list real quick, and I'll give it right back to you, Josh. This is from Donald Trump's Truth, and it's probably been updated with even more. Governor of Pennsylvania, Trump wins. Congressman, Pennsylvania 16, Trump wins. Congressman, Pennsylvania 15, Trump wins. Congressman, Pennsylvania 14, Trump wins. Congressman, Pennsylvania 13, Trump wins. There's Pennsylvania 11, Trump wins. Pennsylvania 10, Trump wins. Pennsylvania 9, Trump wins. Pennsylvania 8, Trump wins. 7, Trump wins. Georgia 14, Trump wins. Georgia 12, Trump wins. Georgia 8, Trump wins. Georgia 7, Trump wins. Georgia 3, Trump wins. Alabama 5, Trump wins. Kentucky 4, that's Massey and Ed, Trump wins. Senator, Republican nominee for the U.S. Senator from Kentucky, Andy Barr, Trump wins. And it just goes on. I'm going to stop. You get the point.
That's right.
Win after win after win after win. And this is still in light of a major thing that Trump's going to end up doing here in a few months, which brings us to the Save America Act and why Thune is now on a war path with Trump. So I'll let you continue where you were if you remember the thought. And if not, then I can jump in.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, what we're seeing is that this whole charade that's been played by this infiltration within alt media was shown to be bullshit. I mean, their main candidate that they stand behind just lost to a Trump endorsed candidate. What does that tell you? That MAGA, America First, is stronger than ever before. That people out there absolutely love what Donald Trump is doing. Now, I was at. And I wonder if she's watching tonight. I was at the Last Gart, right, in Nashville. And I go outside, and there's this woman there that I started talking to that was there for her daughter's wedding. Her daughter, I think it was a wedding or her daughter's night out. And, we started talking. She goes, well, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, well, it's a long story, kind of hard to explain, but I kind of explained it to her. And she goes, I got to tell you, I voted for Trump, but I don't know what's going on right now. I'm really scared because the decisions he's making is scaring the crap out of me. And I don't know if I can support him anymore. And I told her, I said, listen, this is what we hired him to do. This is what we elected him to do, to take down. I mean, you got to understand the control factions of how Iran operates and who the London bankers, how they control the Strait of Hormuz and the global energy prices. And Trump understands this. There's a silent war. And by the end of the conversation, she was like, wow, well, you know what? My support for Trump is more so now than ever before because someone explained it to me of what he's doing. She goes, just why can't he say that? I said, he can't say that because we're talking about a man that has 1,000 decisions to make each day. It's the last thing on his mind when he's trying to actually in the midst of the battle. You're not going to take a break from the battle in the midst of war and go out there and explain to people, oh, this is the reason we're in the war. Let me get back to my post. So he wants people to see for themselves. And this is all about that whole perspective is you can't tell the people, you have to show them. And what he's doing right now is he is showing the people what is happening in the world through his actions. And remember, one of the most important parts about Trump is don't listen to what he says, watch what he does. And he is absolutely dismantling the CCP-led global order, the British empirical system that was operating within the financial construct. He's dismantling that. The Belt and Road Initiative dismantled. He's removing China from the global energy domination and putting the United States of America on there, creating mutually assured economic dependence between China and the United States of America so that kinetic war doesn't actually occur within the next 5 years over energy and artificial intelligence. He's an absolute genius playing multi-dimensional chess with the global stage, and people are confused at what's going on because they're not paying attention. And I get that you can't pay attention to everything, but listen, if you're watching what he's doing exactly what he promised he was going to do. America is back. And here's the thing, after November, after the red wave, after we get a super majority, and I really think that we're going to get a super majority.
I don't think we win the midterms because that's how it's always been. So while I agree with almost everything he said, I'm sort of skeptical there.
I don't have to eat those words. I think we're going to get a super majority, not only in the House and the Senate, but all throughout the states. That what you're going to see is America like never before. Pure freaking innovation.
I hope.
Pure technological progression. You're going to see jobs flowing back in, money flowing back in. He was talking about today $18 trillion that is flowing into the United States of America that's building factories and manufacturing plants and AI
data centers.
Data centers and building all different types of stuff to innovate the United States of America, to make the United States of America the leading nation on this planet, taking the world into the future. And if you can get behind that idea and understand that that completely dismantles the whole idea of a one world government, the new world order, it completely removes and disregards the London banking financial system. The central banking system is going to be revamped. We've already seen the indications of that coming about with Kevin Warsh coming into the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
This is why Jerome Powell is fighting that so hard. I mean, people, we are at a monumentous turning point right now in the world, and we are winning bigly.
Bigly. We are winning bigly. Like how he said that. We are winning bigly. But if you got a chance, go back. That's Tuesday night, 10:30. That's their show on Badlands. Listen to the whole thing. He's not wrong in what he's saying. He just outlined fact for fact for fact for fact for fact. You can go find it. You can look it up. You can research it. It's the truth. We don't see it that way because the media doesn't put it out that way. If you had NBC, CBS, MMSC, Fox, all them, and they were saying what they're saying right now on television, well, the whole country would be all right. They'd be all right with $4.29 a gallon gas, knowing that this is all going to go away in some time. Not soon. I already said it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So, but it's going to come to some point. All these things have to be. Look how many years all this stuff has been going on. I'm 52 tomorrow. It's been going on longer than I have been alive. They groom these people for these positions. You go to political science in college, and you take your ass into some form of political, what they call service, and you're there till you die, like John McCain. Or there's a few examples of that actually happening. Take it to the grave with you. Or they're so old that they can't function. Kentucky's McConnell. Joe Biden. So to tear all that apart here within our borders and try to tear all that apart over in Europe, the Vatican, we'll include them. You know, that's central religion there. And then all those other things. When you compile everything they said right there with the National Defensive Strategy at 26, where it secures the hemisphere, and that includes Greenland, Canada. I know people don't believe that. Canada does not have a constitution. They'll tell you they got one, but it's granted to them by the king. Now king, was queen. At any point in time, he can revoke that constitution, and it changes whatever the hell's going on in Canada. Well, when that happens, who do you think they're going to ask for help from? The United States of America. And since we've already got the hemisphere secured, navally, Air Force, hopefully future militias, what's Britain going to do? Canada will become part of North of America, United States, Poland, and Alaska. It'll all be a part of it. Yes, Ruth Ginsburg, exactly, died. These things are going to happen. Are they going to happen in my lifetime? I don't know if it's all going to be accomplished. Why? Because the people, they're consumed. Sports and everything. Look, I'm as guilty as anybody else. I love sports. Golf. but I keep up with the politics too. I vote, even though I'll sit here and tell you that it can be manipulated, and I give many, many, many examples of facts where it's fraudulent. I mean, look at the voter rolls where they still have dead people voting on them. They've been asked over and over to remove them, and they don't. James says it's gotten to be a circus to watch the finger pointing and the debt growing like it is. If you can't balance the budget, then you shouldn't have access to spend it. Right. That's exactly right. Let's see. Guess who won Canadians their freedom from France? Benedict Arnold. I'm going to say us. I don't know much about that type of history. Probably. I don't know enough about history as it is, but I could research it and give you a better answer, Scrappy Dog. You may have to put the answer in there. But for real, those things, it's happening. And again, I'm not telling you who to vote for or who to pick or whatever, but I see things differently. I see things beyond my nose. And then when you can't unsee things, that's when the problem kicks. Well, it's not a problem because it opens your eyes. But once you unsee things, geez. All right, let's look at a little bit of Gateway Pundit. I want to pop up some articles. I'm not going to read them. I'm just going to show you the headlines real quick. He's a national hero in Canada. Benedict Arnold. Okay, so he says, guess who won the Canadians their freedom from France? Period. Which I didn't see. I'm sorry. Benedict Arnold. So he asked the question and gave the answer. And he's a national hero in Canada. Benedict Arnold. Kitty, kitty, back there. You see it? Oh, yeah. He jumped up in the window. At least he's not trying to get me to go inside open the door for the closet. And then Jason, look there, Jason's in face. He hates that Massey lost. I know. But don't flip out, dude. Don't get on there and start acting all don't be a gatekeeper. You know how I call people gatekeepers. Massey lost. It's the other guy. You know what I'm saying? So Massey should have done some things differently. He might have won again, but he did. Whether you like him, and I mean, again, Jason, it's a movie. It's not real. We're just seeing it is real because we have to participate in this garbage, but it's not real. And I don't have to tell you. You already know. You already know. So what was I gonna? We're gonna look at some Gateway Punt here real quick because I wanted to show. Let's see, like there's a little bit of Minnesota fraud going on. What did they do? If I can find it. So Minnesota feeding our future Somali. Check this out. Where's that? Big. Wait. Why did it? There we go. Look here. Look here. Feeding our future Somali fraud mastermind Amy Bach sentenced over 41 years in prison. You read the article, you're gonna see how much money that they're asking her to pay back. My question is, does she have that money like sitting somewhere on the side, or is it in a bank account that they froze? Because I don't know how many license plates you got to make, to come up with a couple $100 million to have to repay. But she's going to have to do that, apparently. But that's just one. He says, no flipping. No flipping. Jason, I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out what he meant. So let's go back to because there's more on the Minnesota thing. She's just one of them. Let me find it. I had it earlier. This is what happens. Okay. So somehow it must have refreshed. Oh, here's another one. My bad. I'm sorry. Look there. Your favorite lady. Ilhan Omar peeved after vice president says she's under investigation. Well, why shouldn't she be? Let's see. The other guy's turn to be exposed. Very true. Kim says, yeah, a lot of these people are just being exposed. But check that out. There's that. There's that. Let me see. What about this one? Did you guys know that they did an autopsy? Probably did. Been out there enough already. Where's that? Right. Oh, yeah, yeah. Here. Yeah, right here. Check that out. DNC releases massive 2024 autopsy on Kamala Harris's landslide loss to President Trump. And here are the key details. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. That's right, Jason. Not to flip out. I'm not flipping out. He was the last one like him. I get it. Look at that. They did an autopsy. What a fancy word to use. Say that. You just wanted to do a little bit of digging on what the hell they did. It goes into great detail. It doesn't talk about Biden's incompetency to be a coherent person, let alone somebody that was actually elected. But anyway, it's a good read. And I thought that was very interesting that they would do that because, well, are they trying to get ahead of something? They're always trying to get ahead of something. You know what I mean? Trying to get ahead of something. Let's see. Think that's it for that with the old. I do have one more thing. This right here. Look at that. Yeah, look at that. You I know a lot of people like this guy. They think he's, he's all that. Till you got to deal with him on something serious, and you realize that you go the extra mile for your cause. And it was my son, and it was what the Biden administration did to them, against the military. And Tim didn't. He didn't want to give too much time to it because it wasn't a part of the narrative at the time. You were to take the shot because they told you to take the shot, and you're going to be a good soldier and do so. My son took an oath to defend the Constitution against foreign and domestic. And between Joe Biden and that fucker Lloyd Austin, Mr. Mask Man, remember him? Yeah, they just sort of did whatever the hell they wanted to our military men and women. And my son chose to stand. He didn't defy an order because it wasn't a real order that should have ever been given. He did just exactly what he was supposed to. And he upheld his constitutional rights, and they punished him for it. And so when I reached out to Tim, talked to him about it, and I know everybody's heard this before. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it over and over and over again. I want Tim to come on my show. I want Tim to do a podcast on our show like he's done with the guys out in South Dakota and Iowa and California and all that, which has no bearing on the districts in which he is supposed to represent. So I want him to do a podcast. Come on a podcast in a district in which he represents. I voted for that dude. That dude. I want to come on podcast. I want to ask him about all the stuff that he does, that kind of stuff. And then I want to ask him, why wasn't my son as important as an NCAA baseball player who had already spent 4 or 5 years in college? He was on the house floor for 90 seconds, dadgummit, giving a speech about why the NCAA should give that man one more year eligibility. He's on the house floor giving 90 seconds talking about how great James Brong is, and that's the sheriff of Blount County, Tennessee. That's a tyrant. That's a whole other guy there. It's a whole different show, too. Tim seems to be pulling for people that we all talk about, we don't care for and we don't like. But somehow we like him. And he's fine. He might be a likable guy. You know, his family's in the military and great-grandfather and dad dean at UT, you know, all that stuff. And then grandma flew a jet or built a jet or, you know, I don't know. And he walks around with his Carhartt jacket like he's out there slinging a hammer and block and drywall and 2x4s and metal studs every day, just like I do. But he's not. So I want to talk to him. Let's talk about what he's doing up there in Washington and all the things that he's helped pass and child protective. He talks about it pretty big, and yet our county's had very little child protection against sexual predators, from the sheriff's department to the district attorney to the black robes, and that dude's all friends with them. But a bunch of you like him, and yet you hate all the suckers he's buddies with. Makes no damn sense to me. So, with that being said, he is a soundbite character, and his little national tour that he's taking at the moment, I think, is part of Central Casting, and we'll just see how much further down the rabbit hole he goes, because I think that's what it is. It's a rabbit hole. He's being exposed. And so, if I go back to Badlands, because he was on Badlands, and I played it on Blount County Breakdown. I played it on Blount County Breakdown because I want everybody to hear what he was saying, you know, while he was on a podcast with a guy that's in North Dakota who asked about taxes and all that good stuff like that. And so I want him to come on Resolute Exposure. Give me 30 minutes. Give me and Robert 30 minutes. We'll do it like a candid conversation. Then we'll ask you some questions. I just have the one question. Robert can ask him the rest. Check this out. I think this is correct. Let me see. You ought to be able to hear it. Okay.
Is why people don't trust elections, and they can't. Tim Burchett was on John yesterday. We talked about it on Why We Vote last night. I'm still mad about it. I'm still annoyed that you're going to blame voters and call them lazy because they don't trust your bullshit system anymore. When you guys, you don't avoid the appearance of impropriety, you embrace it, and then you mock us when we call it out.
Now, the other night when I played it, I sort of agreed with him that voters were lazy. I say that based on the fact that in my county, during the presidency, we were north of 75, 80,000 voters for president. But then when it came to the primaries for commissioner and mayor and sheriff and all that, we got 16,000. So while I agree with Ash, because that may be the determining factor why people aren't getting out and voting during these primaries because they absolutely know that they're bullshit. Because if we talk about the sheriff and we talk about campaign funds, I think he had like a one meet and greet and a couple ads on Facebook, bunch of signs maybe. Other than that, he was pretty quiet for his campaign. One of his ads said that sorry he wasn't out knocking door to door because he was a working sheriff. 37 years, the guy's 70 or late 60s, somewhere in there. Um, he's out there busting his ass, man. 18-hour days, you know what I mean? So, but probably spent very, very little on his campaign because he already has a voting base of about 10,000 people. So he knew that was enough to beat anybody that was coming after him, like Jerry Burns, for the job, and he didn't have to campaign. So I think he had like um, a big get together there. What do you call that? A party with a whole bunch of people that 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 help run our government here in Blount County. None of them endorsed him publicly like they endorsed each other, but they all seem to have been at the victory party for the sheriff. And so I got to think, I don't have any facts or numbers or anything. So I don't know. He maybe he used, I don't know, but he had a nice place for everybody to come and gather to cheer him on and congratulate him. So I don't know, but Tim's part of it too.
I mean, he did say elections there's a lot of fraud.
I think there's a little bit of fraud going on, but honestly, I think them voters are lazy. Apathy and laziness, and we just got to get out and vote. Nobody trusts you anymore.
I mean, that was the epitome of vote harder. We got to overcome the fraud.
Yeah, I'm still pissed about it. That guy's supposed to be like the most base guy we have, right? Oh, you talked about aliens and talked to him about all sorts of things. Can we talk to him about the fact that he's the beneficiary of a fake election and therefore illegitimate? Because that's the conversation we should be having every time we see these fucking people face to face.
That I agree with. It would be different if we trusted the elections, right? But we don't, so I don't anyway. And to ask these questions, he's not going to come on the show if you ask him a question like that. What's Jason saying? They did it to make idiotic statements and reasons why she lost. And does he get paid to go on shows? I don't know if he gets paid to go on shows. I'm going to say no on the two shows that I watched. He was on DEFCON 0, right? The guys I just showed you a minute ago. You can go to Badlands or Rumble, go to Badlands, and in the description you'll find the show. Tim's on there. And then on Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday. No, Tuesday, because we did our Blount County breakdown on Tuesday. Tuesday is when he did the interview with John Harold, which he owns Badlands Media, and he's out of North Dakota. So he's way West Coast to be doing podcasts. I get that they reach, they got people that listen. Obviously, in East Tennessee, I listen to them, that kind of thing. But my point is that, talk to a local podcaster here. I get it. He goes on the news and stuff like that. Just get away from there. Come on somebody here, where I'll let Robert ask all the questions and then I'll just ask the one, which is my whole problem to begin with. So let's see. We're done with that. Yeah, we're done with that. Let's do this. Which is, all right, guys. This is Promethean action. Promethean action. The midweek update or the Monday. How does she say it? Whatever it is. Lady's great. Even her friend Barbara. They do a fantastic job breaking down the stuff when it comes to this part of the chess where I talk about we're removing the old guard. What is it? The fiat banking system, central banking, central religion, the old guard, all that, whatever fancy little name you want to add to that. They do a fantastic job of going into detail with that. Anyway, you've seen it. I'll let them carry on.
Everyone thinks they know who was targeted by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent when he made these remarks at the No Money for Terror G7 meeting on Monday.
Crushing the threat of terrorism compels all of you to step up and join us in rooting out financing that sustains it, from shell companies that are embedded within Europe to shadow banking networks that lurk across the Middle East and drug cartels across the Western Hemisphere.
Yes, Iran is the target of the sanctions, but Bessent made clear that the gathered nations were the target of his message.
So if we are serious about no money for terror, then there must also be no room for excuses.
Look at what he targeted: shell Europe, shadow banking networks, and drug cartels. That is a description of the City of London's offshore empire and its narco-terrorist operations. But there's an even bigger story that ties this all together. Earlier in May, the White House released its counterterrorism strategy, and it dropped a bombshell about the Muslim Brotherhood. And when you understand what that means, you'll understand why London is shaking right now. But if you don't go any further than looking at the mullahs and the IRGC, or if you're panicking about Sharia law coming to a town near you, you are going to miss the hand behind terrorism, dirty money, and perpetual war. I'm Susan Kokinda. For decades, I've tracked how the British Empire uses irregular warfare in the form of drugs and terrorism to keep nations and populations in line. Well, they've met their match in Donald Trump. And if you want to see how this fight unfolds, hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. First, I'm going to look at what Scott Bessent said at the G7 finance ministers meeting and the pedigree of some of the companies that are being targeted by Treasury. Second, why the new counterterrorism strategy, which singles out the Muslim Brotherhood, puts London in the crosshairs. And third, how Bessent's idea of no room for excuses is being finally applied to shutting down Dope Incorporated. So no room for excuses. That's what Bessent told the finance ministers in Paris. And the addresses on Treasury's sanctions list tells you exactly where the excuses have been coming from. As Bessent was delivering those remarks, Treasury rolled out a fresh round of designations against Iran's oil and proliferation networks. The press releases tell you it's about Iran, but the addresses do tell you something else. So pull up the designations from the Office of Foreign Assets Control. Go back from January through yesterday and read the fine print. They do not all lead back to Tehran. Many of them lead to London. Here are some identifiable companies targeted under the OFAC in recent months. There's Musavi, a Hezbollah financing network, which has a London address. There's Thriving Times International, an exchange house network that has a London address. Then you have Global Fortune Shipping Limited and Science Obedient International Company Limited, both oil or LNG tankers that have London addresses. And then you have Sparkling Courage Limited, another tanker that is headquartered in the British Virgin Islands, one of the United Kingdom's overseas territories. And as I reported last month, when Treasury Secretary Bessent met with the British Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, in Washington, Reeves was the only finance minister who got a warning from Bessent about Operation Economic Fury, which targets Iran's financing networks. Now, the mainstream press won't connect those dots, but the OFAC list is connecting them one designation at a time, and they point right at the City of London, with no room for excuses. Now, since the conflict with Iran broke out, Promethean has been pulling on the British strings that show Iran's real role on the geopolitical chessboard. The empire doesn't actually want the president's Iran moves to succeed, because every win for the president and the United States, London loss. Our free newsletter lays out the connections every week. So subscribe to the Promethean Action free newsletter. The link is in the description. But why is London the natural home for terror financing? This is going to make a lot more sense when you look at the explosive paragraph the White House just published. While Besant was putting London on notice regarding its shell corporations and shadow banking, the White House was put him on notice on another front. This is from the just released White House counterterrorism strategy. It says, President Trump knows that all modern jihadi groups, from al-Qaeda to ISIS to Hamas, can trace their roots back to one organization, the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is the root of all modern Islamist terrorism, predicated on recreating the Muslim caliphate and killing or enslaving non-Muslims. Given the Muslim Brotherhood's key role in promoting modern terrorism, we will continue to designate its branches across the Mideast and beyond as foreign terrorist organizations to crush the organization everywhere it operates. That's the President of the United States identifying the Muslim Brotherhood as the root of all modern Islamist terrorism. Well, if it's the root, who planted the seed? After decades of sponsoring and protecting various radical Islamic fundamentalist figures, British intelligence settled on the Muslim Brotherhood back in 1928 in Ismailia, Egypt. That's where the British Suez Canal Company and the British military were headquartered. The British Suez Canal Company helped the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood build the mosque, which became its base of operations. And from then on, the Muslim Brotherhood was used by British intelligence and often their little brothers in American intelligence against nationalist movements throughout the Mideast. All of this to protect the empire's economic and strategic position. Now, if you want to dive into the history of this, check out either or both of these two books, Robert Dreyfuss's Devil's Game or Mark Curtis's Secret Affairs. Both are extensively researched and documented, but Curtis's background makes his especially interesting. He's a former research fellow at the Empire's Chatham House, and he researched his book based on British government records and declassified documents. And using that material, he shows, in particular, direct British government ties to the Egyptian, Lebanese, and Jordanian branches of the Brotherhood. Guess what 3 branches have been specifically designated by the Trump administration under the Foreign Terrorist Organization provision? Here's what the report says. That is why he, the president, took the historic step of issuing an executive order that declared the original Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood chapter, along with the Jordanian and Lebanese chapters, as foreign terrorist organizations, soon to be followed by others. Those 3 chapters Trump designated, Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon, are the exact same 3 organizations that appear in the British government's own declassified Foreign Office files as British operational assets, built, funded, and deployed by London. And here's the part that closes the loop. When Curtis filed Freedom of Information requests for details on the Foreign Office's more recent contacts with the Brotherhood, meetings that the British media is not going to report, the Foreign Office refused to release them, citing the public interest. Well, it's in their interest, not yours, because London built the network, it used the network, and it is still actively concealing what it is doing with the network today. So whether it's financial flows or whether it's these networks themselves, that is what Besant is targeting. That is what Trump is targeting when the counterterrorism strategy says crush the Brotherhood everywhere it operates. The arrow points at one address, London. Now, remember, Scott Besant singled out shell companies, shadow banking networks, and drug cartels across the Western Hemisphere. When Besant says there must be no room for excuses, he's driving home a point. We are finally and actually waging war on the cartels because we're not afraid to go after the imperial financial networks that have run drugs going back to Britain's opium wars. And it is a war. The May National Drug Control Strategy said this. Over the past 5 years, nearly 500,000 Americans have been killed by drug overdosing and poisoning, more than the combined American military losses of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So the administration is treating it as a war. And in the last few weeks alone, there have been some significant battles won. The cartels have taken 3 hits. Boom number 1, Tren de Aragua. Last week, the first member of a foreign terrorist organization ever extradited from Latin America on terrorism charges landed in Houston. The Colombian government handed him over. The country that for decades slow-walked extraditions to the United States just delivered a TDA leader to face federal terror prosecution. That's what happens when sovereignty actually means something. Boom number 2. May 18th, a federal grand jury in Puerto Rico handed down 23 indictments against La Familia Nunca Muera. That means the family that never dies. Well, it looks like it died this week. The prosecutors used RICO, the racketeering statute, and they charged the entire enterprise as one organization. The whole network, from the leadership down to the shooters, were taken out in a single indictment. Boom number 3. The sitting governor of Sinaloa in Mexico, Ruben Rocha Moya, he was indicted by the Southern District of New York under the allegation that El Chapo's sons kidnapped Rocha Moya's political rivals to get him elected governor. In exchange, he gave the cartels free rein. Now, the United States is not just indicting drug traffickers. They're now indicting the political infrastructure that makes the cartel possible. And the Mexican government itself moved its own financial intelligence unit frank accounts of Governor Rocha Moya, his children, and his senior aides. And at the same time, Mexico approved a new intelligence sharing arrangement. So the FBI, the DEA, ATF, Homeland Security, and Customs and Border Protection, all of them are now operating inside a Mexican state security building. FBI Director Kash Patel made clear, this is a result of an administration that is fighting a real war on all fronts.
When we take out Tren de Arago's senior most leader, we're helping the Colombians down south make sure they don't have one of the worst terrorists of the worst criminal terrorist organizations on the planet in their backyard anymore. And we're going to continue to extrapolate on their networks and arrest everyone and anyone that was involved with it. Kicking open this door that President Trump has done has allowed us to capture 8 of the most violent, top 10 most wanted in the FBI's charts in 1 year.
So put it all together. Besant tells Europe no excuses and targets London-based institutions. The White House cites Britain's Muslim Brotherhood as the source of all Islamic terrorism, and Dope Incorporated is being treated as the enemy combatant that it is. One target, and it is in Iran. The target is the city of London and the irregular warfare apparatus it has run for 200 years. Promethean Action is doing more than just exposing this. We're building a movement that can actually defeat this empire. By understanding and backing President Trump's strategic and economic revolution, you can be part of this. So join us at Promethean Action as a supporting member or a contributor. The enemy that's been hiding in the shadows is now in the open. It's time to finish them off. This has been your midweek update. Thanks for watching.
Please.
Make a lot of sense. You listen to how she's talking when it talks about the Europe, Britain, the old guard, I guess is what I should just continue to call it. With everything else that's going on. There he goes. Within our nation, the borders below our nation, a lot's going on. A lot of things are being taken care of in ways that we don't always see or understand why. But when we start to add the dots and put the dots together, or we think we are, it starts to make better sense, or we believe that's what it is. So, all right, guys. With that, that's been an hour and 46 minutes. I was an hour late today. but it happens. So, anyway, I don't have anything else to run my mouth about. And see, I do appreciate everybody that was in the chat. Hit the like button, all that good stuff like that. And I'll see you guys Tuesday for Blount County Breakdown. Remember, Monday's Memorial Day. Also, see if I can find that. Let's do this real quick. Oh, goodness. One second. Let's see. One second. How funny. I keep saying 1 second, but it's obviously more than 1 second. It's amazing, all the stuff that you save. That when you want something to come up real quick, it doesn't. I wonder. That is so crazy. Man. You watching this, Jason? You watching? Wow. Well, I was going to try to find the flyer for Crystal's event on Saturday from 9 to 12, and I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly, and I couldn't find it on her page, my page, in the saved. I had it somewhere. A lot of news about Kyle Busch. Sad, so young. Wow. Yeah, I can't believe this. I almost feel like they have removed it. Not like physically removed it, but like algorithmically, whatever. Algorithmically. Wow. Okay. I cannot believe that I can't find it. As soon as I shut this down, it'll be there. Let's see. Scrappy Dog says the CIA are the biggest drug dealers in the world. That is very true. They create a lot of this garbage. It's fully documented. I'm amazed that this is. Let's see. One more time. Let's see what it'll do here. Okay. It's basically a Protect the Children rally, guys. It's across the street from the courthouse. I cannot find the flyer for this anywhere. I'm going to let Crystal know that no matter what I did, to find it. It was not there. But anyway, Saturday, 9 to 12, rain or shine, on the sidewalk there, lots of parking. Come out, protect the children. It's what it's for, basically. So, all right, guys, with that, you all have a good evening. And we'll play a little bit of People on the Porch on the way out. Thanks, guys. See you Tuesday.
My heart, pumping all day long. Get me to morning when darkness comes. My heart, ooh.